Let's start with a thought experiment. Imagine, just for a second, that you're never truly alone, not even when the house is completely empty and the world outside is silent. What if? What if there's been something walking right beside you this whole time? A presence you can't see, with no face, no voice, but it feels every single thought you have. Something you can't hear, but that feeds on the quiet, heavy weight of your deepest emotions.
Think about it. And I mean really think about it. Have you ever felt that kind of profound exhaustion? You know, the one where a full 8 hours of sleep doesn't even make a dent. It's a fatigue that doesn't feel like it's in your muscles, but somewhere way deeper, right? Almost in your soul. Now, most of us just dismiss that feeling, but it's such a critical signal. It might just be the very first clue that something more is happening just beneath the surface of your everyday life. Okay, so let's get a little more specific here and just see if any of this sounds familiar. What about those sudden mood swings that seem to come out of nowhere and just completely throw off your entire day? Or that deep, nagging fatigue we were just talking about? Maybe for you it's something a bit more subtle, like those recurring dark thoughts, those little whispers of self-doubt or hopelessness that, if you're being totally honest with yourself, just don't feel like they're coming from you. It can even show up as this constant feeling of being disconnected, you know? Like you're just watching your own life play out from a distance, stuck in a loop you can't seem to break.
So what in the world are we actually talking about here? Well, in a lot of esoteric traditions, there's a name for this phenomenon. They call them energy parasites. Now, before your mind jumps to some kind of sci-fi monster, let's be really clear. We're not talking about anything physical. These are described as subtle, non-physical entities that can attach themselves to our energy field, what some people call our aura. And what's their goal? Well, it's to feed on our vital force, our life energy. And they're especially drawn to the energy produced by really dense emotions, like fear, anger, and deep sadness.
You know, this whole idea might sound a bit out there to our modern way of thinking, but it is so far from new. Actually, it's a warning that echoes down through the ages. You could find it in some of the world's most ancient and revered spiritual traditions. This isn't just some spooky campfire story. It's a documented part of a hidden, energetic reality that people have been talking about for thousands of years.
And it's really fascinating when you start looking back through history, because you see this exact same idea popping up over and over again, just with different names. Take the ancient Egyptians. They talked about the Ka, which they saw as an energetic double that was vulnerable to these kinds of invisible forces. The Gnostics, they warned of beings they called the Archons, who they believed would manipulate human thoughts just to feed themselves. Go over to the Vedic traditions in India, and you'll find stories of the Asuras, entities that get in the way of spiritual growth by exploiting imbalances in our prana, our life force. And even in Western esotericism, you hear about astral larvae, basically thought forms created from our own obsessions and unresolved emotions that take on a life of their own.
So here's the common thread, the really crucial point in all of this. It doesn't matter what you call them, it doesn't matter which culture we're talking about, the underlying message is exactly the same. We don't just have a physical body, we have an energetic one. And that energy field is a kind of silent battlefield. And on that battlefield, our most powerful weapon, our absolute greatest shield, is our own conscious awareness. Okay, so how does this supposedly work in practice? How do these influencers actually attach to us and start affecting our lives? Well, it's not like some big, forceful invasion. It's way more subtle than that. It's an insidious process that really depends on us being completely unaware that it's even happening. So let's break down their playbook.
This quote from the source material it hits the nail on the head. They enter silently, disguised as our own thoughts. Just think about how powerful that is for a second. They don't have to kick down the door, they just whisper, and they keep whispering until you start to believe that their voice is actually your own. So let's map this out. It seems to happen in about 4 stages. First, some kind of crack or weakness appears in our aura. This could be caused by trauma, chronic stress, or even just long-term negativity. Second, an entity finds the vibrational match. It's drawn to that specific frequency of pain or fear, like a moth to a flame. Third, and this is the really sneaky part, it starts to subtly influence our thoughts, reinforcing the very mental loops that created that opening in the first place. It whispers things like, "I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Nobody understands me." And finally, it feeds on the dense, heavy emotional energy that those thoughts produce, which of course just creates a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle.
So where are they finding these openings? Well, just take a look at this list. It's probably pretty familiar, right? And it's not always the huge, dramatic stuff. Sure, addictions are on there,
But we're not just talking about substances. It could be an addiction to drama, an addiction to the constant outrage on social media, or even an addiction to conflict. It could be the echoes of unresolved trauma from your past. Or what about that inner critic? You know, the one that never gives you a break. To these entities, that's like a 5-star meal. And those toxic relationships that always seem to leave you feeling completely and utterly drained, that's a prime feeding ground.
And this right here, this might be the single most important point in this whole discussion. We are not just helpless victims in all of this. The deepest, most stubborn attachments, they require our unconscious consent. Yeah, you heard that right. Every time we refuse to look at our own wounds, every time we choose to hold on to resentment instead of letting it go, every time we actively decide not to heal what hurts, we are, in a very real way, leaving the door wide open and rolling out the welcome mat.
Okay, so understanding the problem is one thing, but that's only half the battle. So what do we do about it? How do we fight back? Well, this isn't about fighting shadows in the dark. It's about turning on the light. Let's get into the practical, powerful steps you can actually take to start cleansing your energy field, sealing up those cracks, and reclaiming your personal power. The whole game changes when you shift your perspective to this. See, true energetic protection isn't about building higher and higher walls or living in constant fear. It's actually an offensive strategy, not a defensive one. It's all about cultivating an inner light that is so strong, so radiant, so high frequency that these lower vibrational influences simply can't find a place to latch on. They're repelled not by force, but by the sheer brightness of your own authentic being.
So what does this actually look like day to day? Well, here are 6 daily habits for what you could call spiritual hygiene. First, 10 minutes of conscious silence. Just 10 minutes. Why? Because it gives your entire energy system a chance to reorganize and hit the reset button. Second, deep breathing. This is huge because it anchors your consciousness firmly in your body, pulling your attention away from all that mental noise. Third, take an honest look at your emotional bonds. Who drains you? It might be time to transform or maybe even release some of those connections. Fourth, cleansing baths. Simple things like Epsom salt, rosemary, or lavender can do wonders for transmuting stagnant energy. Fifth, become a vigilant observer of your own inner dialogue. Just notice those self-critical thoughts, but don't get tangled up in them. Watch them float by like clouds. And number 6, focus on vibrational nutrition. Fresh, living foods don't just feed your physical body, they strengthen your entire energy field.
So as we start to wrap this up, the central message really boils down to one powerful idea: personal responsibility. Your energy is yours. It's yours to protect, it's yours to cultivate, and it's yours to honor. This whole journey is about shifting from being a passive host to becoming a conscious guardian of your own inner world.
I absolutely love this metaphor from the source material. Think of your energy field as a sacred castle, and inside that castle dwells the most precious part of you. You are its sovereign, you are its ruler, its guardian. And as the guardian, you have the absolute authority to decide who and what is allowed inside those walls. You get to set the terms. You hold the keys to the gate. Let's be crystal clear about this. This is not about being paranoid. It's not about seeing monsters hiding in every shadow. This is about empowerment. This is spiritual hygiene. It's really no different than brushing your teeth for your physical health. These practices are just about maintaining your energetic well-being. It's a profound act of self-care and ultimately self-respect.
And look, if you only take one single thing away from our time together, let it be this: the ultimate power you have is your presence. Your focused, conscious awareness right here in this very moment. Because where there is the full light of consciousness, shadows simply cannot survive. They just dissolve. Your presence is the single most powerful repellent there is. Period.
So I'm going to leave you with the same deep, reflective question that the source material poses. Sometime today, or tonight, whenever you can, find a quiet moment, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and sincerely ask yourself this question: who or what is living inside of me that isn't me? The real awakening starts with having the courage to finally ask.